So it starts with the Snapchats from Jeremy Goodale, in which he says that Nohema Graber had failed the wrong student. We had known, due to the investigation from the Fairfield Police Department, that earlier on the 2nd, Willard Miller and his mom had met with Nohema Graber regarding his failing grade. We had retrieved some school records, emails that would show how Willard Miller was anguishing over how bad his grade was and how he didn't feel that Nohema Graber was a good teacher. So this is essentially would be the motive for Nohema Graber's death, where Willard Miller is asking, do students receive credit for class if the professor is seriously injured or dies more than halfway through the course? We were able to recover, it's basically, we call it a prep email, where Willard Miller lists several of the items that he would need to commit the murder.
And then there's a procedure that is also in this message, is that right?
Yes.
And it says, stun, move off trail, empty compartments, load cargo, blanket cargo, deactivate compartment contents, leave bag by exit, transport, empty transport, safety stun, switch glove, deactivate article to bag, finalize the win, in parentheses it says secure victory, load into storage spot, don't forget to close the door to the ground, switch glove, move the sticks, wipe down tools, dispose article, and grab bag by exit, and then done. Did I read that correctly?
Yes.
It's a rather cryptic message, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would say it's very cryptic, and you don't really have to read between the lines to know what he's describing.
This would be at least partially consistent with the items that were found at the scene, as well as the circumstances that you learned concerning Nohema Graber's death. Is that right?
That's correct.
So I saw the things he brought, and we discussed a general plan of like, I'll stand up here if you look out. Walk up behind her, and then I think we walked back out onto the trail to wait for Miss Graber to show up. And I can't remember if we saw her drive in or if we noticed her van and then knew she was there, but I didn't see she was there. And we bumped into her on the trail while we were looking for her, and said, "Oh, hi, how are you?" And then kept walking back down towards the access trail. We were kind of in front of we were moving closer to the parking lot, so we took the quicker way to the access trail while she was walking around. And then, we waited there. Me look out and him standing on the access trail with the bat in his hands. And then he kind of gave me like a nod saying, "Here she comes." And I gave him the signal that it's all clear, and then she walked by and he hit her in the back of the head. And then I said, "Holy shit, make sure she's dead." So we hit her a couple more times. And then I dragged her off towards the access trail. And I wasn't sure if she was alive or not. And I took the bat and I made sure she wasn't alive or breathing. And then eventually he did come back there, and I think he said like what was that? What was that noise? Did you hit her again? I was like, I said, yeah, I did, and then we grabbed her and we moved her towards like a strip of woods that separates the path from the access trail. And then that's where we left her. After Habib dropped us off, I actually went to Chaiden's house with him, and he handed me a small green bag with a tarp inside of it, and he said, like, make sure you can bring this out of your house with you when you sneak out tonight. And then at 12, I snuck out of my house. He had left his wheelbarrow in his driveway for me to come and grab and move for him. And I just grabbed the wheelbarrow. I think I had a shovel with me, put that in there, threw tarp in there, and then I pushed the wheelbarrow down in front of the high school to Chautauqua Park. And when I got there, Chaiden was already there, and he was using a flashlight to scrub at the blood that was left on the trail from where we had hit her and dragged her. And we kind of just worked from where he originally hit her down to the access trail. Just using lights to kind of wash away and wipe away any blood that we found. And then we found Miss Graber's body. We moved it into the wheelbarrow and then rolled it along to where we eventually decided we moved far enough, and we rolled her down the side of the tracks and then placed the tarp over her body. The wheelbarrow was kind of falling apart, and it had blood on it, so we kind of tried to kick the wheel off of it so it looked like a piece of trash, and we left that on top of the tarp. And I went home. Actually, I walked to Chaiden's house with him, and he grabbed a pack of seltzer out of his, grabbed that, and we went to my house, and we proceeded to get drunk, and then he left and went home, and I passed out in my bed.
So what was interesting was when we had first got there, the Fairfield Police Department had listed Willard Miller as a suspect based on some statements he had made to someone else. Jeremy Goodale was not on the board, but obviously once we had the Snapchats, Goodale and Miller kind of rose to the top of the suspect list. Yeah, so this is what John Burnett provided us, one of the Snapchats that he had captured. This is from Jeremy Goodale, and it's Clorox, and basically the caption says "Time to hide a body," and this is just a picture of Goodale with a mask on with a hood, and it just says point of view or POV, you're my Spanish teacher, and this is the last thing you see.
The way that he is dressed with a hoodie and a mask and what also looks like possibly a stocking cap, is that right?
Yes.
To obscure his face, is that correct?
Yes.
Later in his interview to police, did he confirm that he was dressed in this way?
Yes.
Right. And specifically, do you remember him saying that he had lowered his mask right before Nohema Graber was struck?
Yeah, that sounds correct. Yes, I believe he said that. Again, it would be a Snapchat picture of a green tarp. You see like a rope in there, and it's someone holding on to a shovel.
And the caption here?
It says, "No, I'm actually ready. Here we go."
Again, this came from Jeremy Goodale's Snapchat, is that right?
That's correct.
What is this that we're seeing?
So this would be the wheelbarrow that was eventually found on top of Nohema Graber. You see a shovel that was used to try to dig into the ground, but the ground was frozen, was really hard. And then there's like a lantern, and inside the green bag there's some other things that may have been used to try to conceal her.
Setting the stage, Mr. Miller was woken up from his home and brought to the local police department for the sake of being interviewed as part of an ongoing homicide investigation.
And so, again, we're not here to come down on you if you were involved in hanging or a evening, but if you were involved, we want to get out of the table now so we can identify that and move on further. Okay, so were you involved? You were not involved.
I had no idea. Usually people, when something happens, you can find out something in a small town. People can be close, you never know what an overdose will close down and it can spread. You can't hear anything.
Would you be able to classify or kind of describe Mr. Miller's demeanor during the course of this initial conversation?
Certainly compared to several other interviews which have turned out to be those of suspects, I would describe Miller's demeanor as being remarkably relaxed, especially given the circumstances of his age, the nature of the interview, the time of the interview, the fact that he was so comfortable and open, seemingly open with investigators in that opening stage of the interview, I felt was very remarkable.
Now you just qualified your statement seemingly open. Did that initial conversation that you had with Mr. Miller, let's call it conversation one, did the facts that were unearthed or attested to by Mr. Miller change as the conversation progressed?
Yes, they did.
At what point did you kind of note that maybe there was more to this story and maybe Mr. Miller was holding back or changing some of the relevant facts of this case?
Well, early on in the interview with Mr. Miller, while trying to get to know Mr. Miller as best I could, one of the questions that I had asked him was who were some of his close friends. And I felt that it was notable in his response where he listed several friends, but one of them was not Mr. Goodale himself. Not that I know him well enough to say that that was definitively untrue, but I did think that it was notable to circle back around later on in the interview to confirm that.
At this point of the interview, you had two suspects, principal suspects in mind, correct?
That's correct.
And did you have kind of some foreknowledge that they were close?
Yes.
Mr. Goodale and Mr. Miller?
Yes.
So it would stand out that Mr. Miller would indicate Mr. Goodale was a close associate?
Yes, it would.
What are some other factors that might have kind of tickled your concern about Mr. Miller's story?
Well, in detailing his life events throughout the course of that day on the afternoon and evening of November 2nd, he was pretty confident in the way he exhibited that information of he had gone from having a meeting with his mother and Miss Graber at the school to going to the office of his mother where he continued to do homework while his mother worked, and going from there directly to his home where he spent the remainder of the evening. As we reiterated that account, he began to change that account. One of the initial items that he changed was the fact that who he had run into. Upon first saying that he had not come across Jeremy Goodale throughout the course of that afternoon and evening, later on he admitted that sure enough he had. And to clarify, this was an interview that was taking place approximately a day and a half after the information we were discussing. So I would have presumed, in spite of the fact that it was early morning, that he would have had a pretty good recollection of what exactly happened and who he came across. And so after initially denying running into Mr. Goodale on his way from his mother's office to his home, then he came around and said, actually, yes, I did run into him, which I found a bit concerning that that one small point would be omitted, again, given the circumstances and the timing of the interview.
How many versions of the story would you say that Chaiden spun for you during the course of your interview?
Well, there was certainly multiple versions, but within some of the later versions that he provided, he would add details as I would break down those versions. For example, in addition to what he was doing specifically, how those actions were taken.
Mr. Miller originally denied having any knowledge about the death of Mrs. Graber, correct?
That's correct.
And later on, he talked about actually witnessing a part or a portion of her demise, correct?
Yes, he described an incident where a group of masked individuals, numbered somewhere between 6 and 8, had pursued Miss Graber in Chautauqua Park. Miller described hearing what he described as a thud, and then looking down into Chautauqua Park and seeing this group of masked individuals carry some sort of object into the woods, which he had assumed was Miss Graber herself.
Now, did Mr. Miller, was he able to provide for you the names of any of these 6 to 8 masked individuals who allegedly drugged Mrs. Graber into the woods?
Not specifically the names of those individuals. No, he was not.
Were any names kind of generated by Mr. Miller during the course of this interview?
Yes.
And without listing all the names per se, in your later conversation with Mr. Goodale, were any of the names consistent?
So during that initial interview with Mr. Miller, one of the questions I believe I asked him was, were there people out there that he felt or knew about that may have wanted to do harm to Miss Graber? He had actually identified that, yes, there were several people that had gone through Miss Graber's class and had ill feelings towards Miss Graber, and then also at least provided, I believe, at least 3 specific names of classmates of his who he thought were capable and had ill feelings towards Miss Graber.
In your later conversation with co-defendant Goodale, did Mr. Goodale tell you any individuals that Mr. Miller maybe had a beef with or had troubles with?
I believe that he said that he didn't have any issues of bullying, but he did have some disagreements with some of his classmates/associates at Fairfield High School.
And were any of the names that Mr. Goodale listed as people Mr. Miller had problems with at high school the same names as he listed as being involved in the death of Mrs. Graber?
I believe that they were, yes.
It was very difficult for our community. It was difficult because Fairfield's supposed to be a place that you raise your kids. You know, it's supposed to be a safe place. Nobody locks their doors. Everybody knows everybody. You know, we are known for a very pacifist community. As a result of Nohema Graber's murder, people were scared to go out. People refused to walk in the parks. Parents were scared to send their kids to school. Teachers were scared to teach in school. I think the general public felt a lack of security was ripped from them as a result of this murder. It's not a reflection of who our community as a whole is. And I think for everybody, they suffered some kind of loss as a result of this murder.
I would like to take this opportunity to wholeheartedly accept responsibility for the role that I've played in the murder of Nohema Graber. I would like to apologize for my actions, first and foremost, to the family. I'm sincerely sorry for the distress that I've caused you and the devastation I've caused your family. And from the bottom of my heart, I'm sorry for your loss. I'm sorry to hear about Paul Graber. I would also like to apologize to the community, to just the ripple effect that my actions have had. Everyone that was affected. I would like to apologize to Nohema Graber's church. I know that she was I know now that she was a very active member there and doing a lot of good things there. I'd like to apologize for what I did and how that affected them. I would like to apologize to my family. I love you guys so much, and I'm really sorry for what I've done and how it's affected you. And I'm planning on getting back out there as soon as I can and make up for the lost time. I'd also like to apologize to the Goodale family. I'm sorry for the position that Jeremy's in. And I wish you the best, and I hope that he gets out as soon as possible. Sorry. I know what I did was wrong, and I accept responsibility for my carelessness, for my ignorance, and also I'd like to apologize to the police department and the investigators there for the misinformation I provided back in 2021. I was leaving on a wild goose chase. I ended up I'm sorry for that. Coming here today, now at the end of this stretched out journey, I'm realizing just the magnitude of my actions, and I know it's wrong. I knew it was wrong, and yet I still carried through. I still did what I did, and I accept responsibility for that. And I apologize to all parties, everyone affected, to my community, to my family, to the Grabers, of course. And I ask that I'm given a chance, and I don't want to be institutionalized. I don't want to be in so long that I forget about what mattered, where I come from, and what I need to do. I look forward to getting through this. Thank you.
The definition of malice is the intention or the desire to do evil. And evil does not have a will day. This court cannot overrule precedent. However, I will not gloss over the fact that you and Mr. Goodale cut Nohema Graber's precious life short. That would not be justice, regardless of your age, Mr. Miller.
I want to say I'm grateful for this chance to speak my piece. I offer my sincerest apologies to the Graber family, but I know my words will never be enough. I've had time to think on what to say, and I'm sorry, truly sorry. What I've taken can never be replaced. Every day I wish I could go back and stop myself. prevent this loss and this pain that I've caused everyone. Everyone in the community and outside of it, those closest to me and those closest to the Graber family, as well as the Graber family. I didn't know how taking Miss Graber's life would affect you. I can't comprehend losing a loved one in such an awful way. I'm sorry I didn't stop this from happening in the first place. I'm understanding now that Miss Graber meant so much to so many people. She was a support to the community and those close to her. And she was a caregiver to her family, to her children, and to her own husband. So sorry. To Mrs. Graber's friends and the members of her church, I'm truly sorry for what I've taken from you. I never stopped to consider the community. To everyone at Fairfield High School who felt unsafe, those who were scared, those who lost hope, I'm sorry for what I've done. I'm sorry how my actions have affected you. I want an apology to all my friends. I'm sorry for the stigma placed on you just for having known me. Zach, Habib, Zoe, and John, I didn't care. I didn't even know what this had done to you. And I'm sorry. And Dad, I'm sorry that I let you down in so many ways. Jackie and Sophia, you've given so much to me. I'm supposed to be helping you and Dominic right now, Jackie, but I can't. Instead, I've caused so much stress, and so much loss, and so much grief. And to all of my siblings, I took your little brother. And Dad, I took your son from you. 2 years ago, I made the worst decision of my life. And I take full responsibility for what I did. And today, as a young man, I can begin to pay for that. I can never give back what I've taken. But I hope that this situation doesn't end as tragically as it began, and that someday something positive can come from this tragedy. I know that my words will never be enough, but to Miss Graber and all her family, I'm truly sorry. Thank you.
While you were naive and immature, you aided Mr. Miller in murdering Nohema Graber. As everybody talked about, you knew the difference between right and wrong. You were a bright student and still are a bright individual. And you could have stopped this from happening, and you know that. And that's probably going to be the hardest thing for you to live with. And you are a good candidate for rehabilitation. And I think time will tell, but you'll be far more successful than Mr. Miller.
Nohema was a truly remarkable woman. After graduating high school in Jalapa, Veracruz, Mexico, where she and Paul met when he was an exchange student, Nohema became a flight attendant for Mexicana Airlines, and on the side, put herself through flight school, becoming one of the very first women to be licensed to fly passenger jets in Mexico. While unable to get a pilot's job in Mexico at that time, the mid-1970s, the flight crews, knowing of her qualifications, would sometimes let her fly a while. Paul was on some of those flights, and he's described to me how she might disappear during a flight for a long period of time, and then finally come back bubbly and excited. she'd been flying the plane. When Paul became disabled due to the extensive nerve damage to his feet and legs from severe diabetes, Nohema once again showed her strength and determination, stepping up and obtaining a bachelor's degree from Iowa Wesleyan and a teaching certificate in her 50s, becoming the family's primary breadwinner. Her murder thus deprived the family of its primary means of support. Nohema taught for a number of years at Ottumwa and was in her 10th year of teaching at Fairfield High School when struck down. There, she's remembered by her many hundreds of students and their families, who have embedded a nearly 5-foot granite monument to her into the wall of the high school in a commanding position where the main hallway intersects the end hallway near her classroom. Students and staff also established and funded scholarships in Nohema's name, held candlelight vigils in her memory, packed the high school auditorium at her evening prayer and vigil service, and created beautiful works of art in her memory. They also left flowers in a reserved auditorium seat at student concerts and performances in honor and memory of her and the encouragement and support she provided to so many outside the classroom. Memorials were also placed at the public library and elsewhere in town, and permanent memorials at Chautauqua Park as well as the high school. Governor Kim Reynolds also honored Nohema, ordering all flags on state property to be flown at half-staff from dawn until sunset in her honor. Such honors are not typically extended to ordinary people. Nohema led an extraordinary life of service. In addition to her nurturing roles at home and at school, she was very active in the Catholic community. She attended Mass daily, recited the Rosary every Friday evening with a group of women, a number of whom are here. Nohema encouraged others to return to college and finish their educations, helped them find scholarships, and pointed out that she herself had gotten her degree in her 50s. Jeremy Goodale and Willard Miller put an end to all that religious and community service as well. That is a brief sketch of who you helped murder and some of the havoc that murder has caused.